Good evening. My name is Ed Levine. I'm one of the volunteers of the Chicago Booth Angel Network of New York. I'd like to welcome you from myself and from the other members of the committee. Some of you may have gone to some of our our in-person events that we had pre-COVID. Some of you may have gone to the a virtual event that we had in September, which was in conjunction with the San Francisco group. And some of you have never gone to an event like this before. So we welcome you all, and we hope you have a good time and maybe even a profitable time. Let me just briefly give you the ground rules and tell you what this is all about. This is a pitch event. We're going to have 4 exciting companies. They're going to talk to us. This is all under kind of the umbrella of angel investing. What's an angel investor? It's somebody who puts money into a very young company. Very often it's called seed money. This is one that is the most risk and potentially the most reward. It's important that you understand what these companies are doing, and you get a feel of what the entrepreneur or entrepreneurs are like. And if you feel good about the whole thing, you might want to invest. To make it clear, the Chicago Booth Angels it's not a fund. Okay, if you do invest, you're not going to write a check to us, you're going to write a check to the company. We're here to kind of make this all happen, but we are not a fund. And we're sort of part of the university too. The other thing that you might want to consider is, besides writing a check, is if this is an industry where you have some expertise, you might be able to actually mentor these companies. And that's something you can work out with the entrepreneur if you have that kind of experience. There's never an obligation to invest. If you're just here to learn more about this, and maybe in a future time you want to invest, that's just fine. No one's ever going to push you to invest. We're going to be seeing 4 companies. Each company will have approximately 10 minutes to make a presentation, and then we will have about 5 or so minutes to ask questions. We're asking that you please type the questions into the Q&A function, which you'll see at the bottom. We will then pick questions at the end, and hopefully the entrepreneurs can get those answered. Try to only ask one question so that everybody has an opportunity, and don't make them super specific. Questions which everyone will understand and give everybody a better understanding of the company. You'll also see 2 other things I want you to be aware of in the chat function. One is a 1-pager overview of each company, which can help you get a better understanding. If you can download that and print it, whatever, you're more than welcome to. The other thing you're going to see there is a form. The reason for this form is we are going to be hosting next week 1-hour diligence sessions for each of these 4 companies. The date and the time and the lead for those diligence sessions, I believe, is on the form. We ask you to fill that out and submit it. Of course, you can also copy what's there and write it down for yourself. We will try to get all this information out in an email, but the more you can get down now, the better, just in case we don't get everything to you. But the whole idea of the 1-hour diligence session is if this is a company that's of interest to you, then we encourage you to spend an hour with the entrepreneur, ask more specific questions, and at that point, we kind of leave it up to you and the entrepreneur to make some final decisions in terms of an investment. That's basically all I wanted to say to you. I do want to thank everybody else who's on the committee. Without this, we all couldn't do this. It's a group effort. We're all Booth alum. So just quickly, I'd like to give you their names: Adelie Kaur, Andrew Holmes, Cindy Mockles, David Hogan, David Weiner, Kalani Tipnis, Anthony Sirocco, Shiva Nastala, and Vishal Goel. And also, I'd like to give a special thanks to Leanne Muchler, who is from the university, who's been helping us put this all together. So without further ado, we're going to start with the first company. If anybody has their sound on, you might want to mute that now so that there isn't any interruption. The first company is called Humanitru. It'll be Alan Way, and Humanitru is going to provide nonprofits with a SaaS business intelligence platform that allows them to fundraise efficiently. With that, I'll turn it over to Alan. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Ed, for the introduction. It's a pleasure to be here tonight and present what I think is one of the most exciting companies that I've been a part of, the only company really. I started this at school. So hello everyone, my name is Alan Way. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Humanitru. As Ed mentioned, we are a software platform for the underserved $428 billion nonprofit industry. Now, many people's first impression of nonprofit and charity is that they're small, side hobbies, basically not real businesses. But when you look at the numbers and who's playing in this space, it's immediately evident that this is one of the largest industries in the United States. $428 billion in yearly revenue, contributing $1 trillion to US GDP to the tune of about 5%, and employing 1 out of every 10 employees in the private sector. Massive institutions and household names like Feeding America, Habitat for Humanity, the Smithsonian, and yes, even the University of Chicago all fall under this bucket of nonprofit. Now, this amount of revenue isn't just coming from corporations and foundations. It's predominantly driven by people like you and I, and in line with industry trends, is increasingly moving online to things like digital giving, mobile devices, seeing double-digit growth every single year. And what about the elephant in the room? Namely, this insane year that we've had? Well, it turns out that nonprofits have not only persevered, but actually even grew despite these, quote, unprecedented times. For the first time ever, growth in online giving exceeded 20% in 2020 when compared to 2019, and especially human service nonprofits such as food banks, shelters, saw revenues increase 12% during the pandemic, despite the rest of the world shutting down. Now, despite all of this good press, despite all of the support that we give to charities, there's this massive amount of inefficiency going on behind the scenes. This is one of the most troubling stats that it should scare you. 8 out of 10 first-time donors will never give again to the same nonprofit. That's a dismal 20% customer retention rate. And why don't they give again? Given that you all are an alumni group, some of these reasons may resonate. For example, 86% of first-time donors were never even asked to commit to a recurring gift. Nonprofits will routinely fail to even reach out to people whose credit cards have expired. And this last one should especially resonate. I stopped giving because they kept on pestering me. The bottom line is that technology is failing modern-day nonprofits. It's failing to help them adequately manage their donors, their customers at scale in a way that allows them to really fundraise efficiently. And when you look at their options today, nonprofits are stuck between a rock and a hard place. They're either using outdated on-premise monolithic platforms that were built in the 90s, or they're stuck with for-profit tools that weren't built with nonprofit needs in mind. For the former, they're stuck using something like Blackbaud, a company earning $1 billion a year in annual revenue, yet championing a flagship product built in the 90s. And on the other hand, they're being forced into Salesforce, which carries a hefty price tag and requires a dizzying array of customizations just to get close to being operational. And by the way, that Etch-a-Sketch quote is a real quote from a real nonprofit director when they were evaluating their different options, and a board member asked, "What about Salesforce?" And driving it home on why does this really matter? And it's because despite the overwhelming support that we give to the causes we care about, these inefficiencies are preventing nonprofits from truly realizing their potential, meaning that at the end of the day, they're not able to create as much social impact as they possibly could. And as they say, no money means no mission. So let's take a look at a real typical example of a Humanitru client, how big they are and how they do fundraising. This is Clara Stokes. She's the Chief Development Officer, meaning that she oversees all revenues for her organization for Caritas, a nonprofit that provides homelessness and addiction recovery services. They fundraise about $7 million annually from a donor base of about 9,000 donors, 18,000 volunteers. It's not a small mom and pop shop by any standards. Clara's donors or customers come from many different places. They attend informational events, fundraising events, they volunteer at the shelter, they engage with Caritas online via email, social media, and more. But Clara can only see one piece of the puzzle, and that's where her donors are and what they've given in a platform called Donor Perfect. She can't see her volunteers, she can't see who comes to events, or even who even gets her newsletters. Mistakes start to happen, like forgetting to recognize a lifelong volunteer during an annual appeal, or over soliciting prospects with too many emails, or accidentally calling up in an annual appeal somebody who just committed to $1 million gift just last week. And Clara isn't alone. Her volunteer manager, her events coordinator, her marketing staff, they're all managing their own audiences in their own silos with little to no coordination. And this lack of coordination means that Clara's supporters, whether they be donors, volunteers, they don't feel like they're being heard, meaning they're this less likely to give again to Caritas when it comes time for their annual appeal, for example. And this is about average for a nonprofit. Multiple non-integrated tools collecting their own data used by different departments, and the only way to look at the full picture is to manually run reports, download them into Excel, attempt to match them by email or by something else. And many nonprofits don't even get to the last step here. They're so resource strapped, many opt instead to operate out of tradition or gut instinct or the way it's always been done, sometimes even against what the data actually tells them. Or if they're not using Excel, they're using something like this. So this is a screenshot from Razor's Edge, the flagship product by Blackbaud. Again, this is a $1 billion annual revenue company. This is the flagship product. This is the on-premise solution that they're championing that many nonprofits are forced to use today. Now, contrast this with something like our platform, A World in Humanitru, where not just Clara, but her entire organization can see all of their supporters and all the ways they engage. One platform, one database, so that they can begin to make decisions driven by data and coordinate more effectively as an organization. And that's what we are. We're a platform, not just a CRM, that aims to provide nonprofits with a unified supporter ecosystem. It manages their donors, volunteers, events, payments to enable best practices around data analytics, segmentation, automation, and more. It's a market with plenty of space to grow in. Starting with CRM analytics, going into event fundraising software, and then into payment processing, nonprofits will already spend billions of dollars a year on these kinds of tools. Yet Humanitru is the only one that takes this integration approach seriously to allow nonprofits to turn operations into insights. And the way we make money allows us to have the best of both worlds. We charge both an annual subscription for our platform, as well as a transaction fee on all payments flowing through our platform. There are 1.5 million nonprofits in the US, and today our target market number around 120,000, namely nonprofits between 5 million and 25 million in annual revenues, at a price point of between $3,000 and $30,000 a year. Furthermore, with nonprofits processing over $55 billion a year online, which is growing double digits yearly, a 1% transaction revenue model as an add-on, basically when nonprofits win, we win as well. And finally, tailwinds are in our favor. Being minority and women co-founded and led is becoming more and more important to not only our clients, but to our prospects. And the COVID-19 pandemic is accelerating nonprofit adoption of digital online fundraising tools to keep up with the outpouring of support for causes that people care about. And finally, I'm not alone in building this company. Although I've personally coded every product out to market today, I've been able to attract an amazing team with me with decades of experience in both nonprofit fundraising and B2B SaaS sales that not only see the potential of our product, but the market we serve and the very real need that nonprofits have for modern technology. And let's see what we've been able to accomplish. $200,000 in annualized recurring revenue, over 95% revenue retention, over 95% gross margin, 70 paying clients, $2.3 million in transactions processed. We're on our way up. We've won over customers from Blackbaud, from Salesforce, from every one of our competitors, and each one of our clients rave about us. We're truly changing the way nonprofits fundraise and use technology to engage their donors. So, if you're interested in both doing good in the world and seeing a return on your investment, come find me and let's talk.
Very good. Questions? I don't see any questions in the Q&A box. Oh, I take that back.
Very good.
Okay, do you see those, Alan?
Yep, I see them right now. So I will start here with Mark. The question is, how sticky is Blackbaud? Is it easy to switch to Humanitru? Great question. So Blackbaud is one of the predominant players in this space. They have a variety of products. Razor's Edge is one of them, but they do have others like eTapestry, Blackbaud CRM, and Altru. It's a pretty sticky product in that it's a system of record, right? So storing all the information around donors, volunteers, and so on and so forth. What we have found is we take a very heavy migration approach, and that's how we win them over. What that means is we have a really simplistic platform on how we analyze and store and run reporting on data, which means when we migrate data over from Blackbaud, it's a pretty easy process. So oftentimes when we go into organizations, they're saying, hey, we use something like Blackbaud, we go in and do a demo. Oftentimes, it's really easy for us to even pull a portion of their data from Blackbaud and ingest that to our platform. So we're even doing a demo with their own data already migrated over. So replacing something like Blackbaud usually then becomes a conversation around training. And usually when clients approach us, when prospects approach us, they're already like annoyed or tired of Blackbaud, and so it's a pretty easy switch over. And wow, a lot of the questions are flowing in now. Okay. What is donor retention for your clients? So great question. We're putting together a bunch of case studies. We have only been out to market for about 15 months or so. Also, we're running the early numbers around donor retention. Also, COVID has been a really interesting picture. What I can say anecdotally is that one of the biggest pushes that we've been doing for all of our clients is monthly recurring giving. With that, obviously, donor retention rises far, far up. So we're probably guesstimating the industry average about 20% to rise about 40% within our client base. But that is a really great follow-up question, James. Can you give us more information on ramp of revenue and clients during 2020? So 2020, this past year, we initially saw a dip in revenues in Q2 and Q3 as nonprofits were really adopting to their new reality. In kind of the tail end of Q3 and Q4, we did see revenues for us bump back up. Many nonprofits were looking at transitioning their in-person galas, their fundraising events into an online medium. And one of the products that we have out to market that we pushed out is in online fundraising, so online auctions. It really quickly became the only way many nonprofits could fundraise. So we spun that out a la carte and actually been seeing a lot of increased lead generation, a lot of increased demos specifically around that product. And it is a big part of our land and expand strategy. Our customer acquisition process. So the two channels that have done really well for us is pay-per-lead services around marketing, as well as outbound sales. So the first, for the former, we use a service called Software Advice. It's a product by Gartner. Basically, people write in and say, we're looking for a donor management platform. Have you guys give us a few options? We pay about $30 to $40 per lead. So these leads are already highly qualified. They're looking to switch. We even have a sense of what systems they're looking for, and finally, even what their price point is. So we're able to really quickly get in there. Paul's our VP of sales, is being able to really kind of hone in on their exact pain points. And we actually close clients on our average sales cycle is about 75 to 90 days from when we get that first entry. So pretty seamless process around customer acquisition. Use of funds. So one really interesting thing that we're doing now is expanding upmarket into museums and higher education. And for those particular clients, we're seeing an elevated demand for products like prospecting, behavioral analytics, and marketing automation. So our primary use of funds for our upcoming raise is going to be around that technology build out in order to build out that set of features that will really unlock the potential for that different segment of nonprofits around museums and higher ed. All right. How do you address client concerns about using the data that collects all different types of data sources? Is there a client hesitation about keeping all this information in one platform? So it's a really great question. The key thing here is we are interested in being a data integration platform rather than an operational full ecosystem. What that means is like, we know we cannot build the best for everything. Like we can't be the best email marketing platform, the best event platform, the best donor platform out there. What we can say is we'll be the best data integration platform out there. We're able to pull together information from Eventbrite, from MailChimp, from Constant Contact, from QuickBooks, all into one place. So when clients hear about keeping all this information in one platform, they actually feel really relieved because they can say, I can use the best tool for the best purpose. But when I'm looking at my data, when I'm looking at reporting, when I'm looking at my entire audience, I can do that in one place without needing to farm it out into different tools and different departments. And that has been the key value add for them. One really quick question. What is our MRR currently? So we're at 200K ARR, so about 16, 17K MRR. We mentioned from Pablo, mentioned the target market are nonprofits between 5 million and 25 million in annual revenues. Why are you focusing on that segment? So we find that the key pain point that we're looking to solve are nonprofits that have a sufficient volume of data, sufficient volume of supporters that they need to manage. Nonprofits below 5 million in annual revenues, we find tend to not experience that pain point as vividly. They're maybe managing donors in an Excel spreadsheet. They're maybe predominantly government funded or corporate funded. And so we found that targeting those customers resulted in a higher churn because our product was very reporting and analytics driven, and that just wasn't a pain point they were having. Anything 25 million and above, we find that starts very quickly turning into a very enterprise like sale. Our product is relatively young in the marketplace. We've been out to market for about 15 months or so. And so we really wanted to show some proof of traction kind of in the SMB mid-sized nonprofit market before deciding to move upstream. But it is in our long-term vision to be able to handle larger nonprofits to the tune of 25 million and above. These are organizations like Make-A-Wish National, Habitat for Humanity National, a lot of the healthcare foundations, Children's Miracle Network, organizations like that.
Okay, great. I think you covered everything. That's you did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you for all the questions.
If you like what you heard, go to the diligence session next week. Thank you very much, Alan.
Thank you, Ed.
Okay. All right, the next company up is Adelante Shoe. Peter Sacco will be speaking for the company. Adelante is a mission-driven brand that sells premium, made-to-order footwear delivered direct in 10 days. Peter, the floor is yours.
All right, awesome. Let me share my screen. All right. All right. Let's see. So thank you, everybody, for being here. My name is Peter Sacco, and I am founder and CEO of Adelante Shoe Company. We are the world's most personal consumer brand. So, question. What innovation created the most value for 21st century consumer brands? The answer is actually direct to consumer. Direct to consumer is a fundamental innovation to the mechanics of the business model itself, specifically on the distribution side of the business. As a brand, you cut out the middleman, right? And you can sell a higher quality product direct to the end customer at a better price as a result. And of course, these are just a few of the very valuable brands that were born from this fundamental innovation on the distribution side of the business model. So D2C created a ton of value, but here's the thing, even D2C brands in our space are still producing shoes the same way that they did 50 years ago. And when you're a brand, here's what that looks like. You outsource production to a factory. The factory has a minimum order requirement that goes down to the SKU level. So if you want to offer customers odd sizes, you need to produce a whole bunch of them. And you pay the factory up front for that production, which drains your cash flow and drains it even more so with each additional size that you want to produce. Then the factory goes and they mass produce the product. And 15 months later, the output of this system is really necessarily a commodity. The sizes that you can offer are constrained, and there's no room for personalization of product or experience. What this means for brands in our space is that the tools that they have to differentiate from each other are essentially non-existent. This point is illustrated very well by a marketing stunt that Payless Shoes did 2 years ago in 2018. they launched a fake luxury brand and store called Palessi. They took $50 and $60 Payless shoes, put a Palessi logo on them, marked them up to $500 and $600, and sold them to customers. And people paid and people purchased out of this fake luxury store, right? That's the state of play in our space. There's so few tools for differentiation as a result of this production model that commoditizes everything, that the only thing that customers can assign value to is the logo on the product itself. Now enter Adelante. What we're doing, we're looking at that production side of the business model, and we're fundamentally innovating on it for the first time in 50 years. You can think of this as direct-to-consumer innovation 2.0, just for the production side of the business model. So what we've done is we've vertically integrated production down in Guatemala. It's all in-house. We have full control over it. And all of a sudden, we don't have to operate within the constraints of the traditional model. There's no more minimum order requirements. There's no more mass production requirement. What we can do is we can make each pair to order, and we can deliver direct to the customer's door within 10 days of purchase. And that's exactly what Adelante does. We sell made to order footwear that's delivered direct from cobbler to customer in 10 days. And made to order unlocks significant new tools for differentiation of both the product and the brand experience. Because our product is made to order, we can provide customers with a much broader spectrum of sizes than any other brand. Because our product order, we can offer customers aesthetic customization that other brands cannot. And then from a brand perspective, because we make to order, we're able to provide customers with a much more personal, much more meaningful brand experience where we actually introduce the customer to their craftsman while he's hand making their shoes and educate the customer about the social impact of their purchase on their craftsman in a way that other brands can only dream of. So the question, of course, is great, so what? Well, leather footwear in the United States is a very large, very stale market. And within it, there's a handful of customer segments that are literally structurally excluded from finding solutions to their problems. I'm talking people with wide feet, narrow feet, women who want to wear riding boots that have wide or narrow calves. These folks oftentimes literally cannot find a solution to that problem, even when they're certain. Adelante is uniquely positioned to solve those problems. We think of these market segments as niches. They're actually massive. Let's start there, then use the quality of the product and the relevance of the brand to bridge over into the broader vulnerable market share. So 2020, obviously nobody's favorite year. Adelante actually ended up growing year over year in 2020, our third full year, up to 1.6 million in top line revenue. That growth was driven by e-commerce, which we developed 66% year over year. A few key stats on the right: 15% return in exchange rate. That is significantly below the industry standard of 30 to 35%. 30% repeat purchase rate. That's the highest repeat purchase rate that I'm aware of in our space. And if you segment out our non-standard size customers, actually repeat purchasing at a 40% clip, which is pretty incredible. And then finally, 3.5 to 1 customer lifetime value to CAC ratio. That's already in a very solid place. In fact, our entire single customer economics are really quite healthy. We're notably profitable on a single customer basis. A few things I'll point out here. CLV on the top line, you see that a little bit since 2018 as a result of us having added so many new customers to the mix. Gross margin, there's significant room for that to improve and over time as we bring down every element of our landed cost of goods sold with increased sales volume. And then same story with contribution margin, significant room for that to increase over time. as we really start to develop our e-commerce sales ecosystem and drive down our customer acquisition cost. We've put together a team that can build a $100 million a year company. A few folks along the top that I'll point out. Leah Russell, she rounds out the executive team with Michael and I. She brings 30+ years of experience in building iconic consumer brands across marketing, sales, and business strategy with both Hennessy and Diageo. Nick Fior, we actually just brought him on a couple of months ago. He's our new Associate Director of Performance Marketing. He brings 8 years of experience of performance marketing with direct-to-consumer brands. And then Horacio, I'll point him out as Horacio is our first craftsman down here in Guatemala. He's the production manager at the workshop, a local guy, very embedded in the community down here in Guatemala. He's actually a co-founder in the company and an equity holder. Just the same, down looking at the board of directors, we've put together a great group. Everybody on the board of directors is very involved in the company, and everybody on the board of directors is a direct investor in the company. A few folks that I'll point out as well: Uli Becker, the former CEO of Reebok; Ken Anson, his family used to own the majority of Cole Haan. He was actually invited to the Alan Edmonds board a few years ago and turned them down. And then Eduardo, he represents a strategic investor for us down here in Guatemala, a group called Sierra Capital that owns the largest footwear manufacturer and leather tannery in the country. They're directly invested in our company with the explicit purpose of acquiring us down the road. So as of just a few days ago, our $1 million round has been filled. However, I've spoken with the board and we've decided to open up an additional $200,000 in the round. So that is what is currently available. We're investing that money in the growth and development of our e-commerce team and sales ecosystem. In 2020, despite growing e-commerce significantly, we had only 2 people running all of our e-commerce channels and initiatives, Julia and Leah. They did a great job, but neither one of them was really a performance marketer. And they were both stretched incredibly thin. We need to add a few key pieces to that team under Leah and Nick's leadership and make a nice jump from 2020 to 2021. We're raising on a convertible note with really quite investor-friendly terms. It's a $4.5 million cap, 25% discount. A few of our key institutional investors shown down there below that are invested in this round. And we're positioning for an acquisition in 4 to 6 years. We start to see a lot of M&A activity in our space when brands get to about 20 million in revenue. I'll close with a quote by a prominent VC in our space. We're increasingly looking at supply chain. What are the ways in which they can design a process or system to have unique advantages? That's exactly what Adelante is doing. We're redesigning the production side of the business in a way that enables us to provide customers with and brand experience value that other brands simply cannot do. Thank you to you all for your time, and I look forward to questions.
Thank you, Peter. Questions, please.
Let me.
Okay, there's one there already.
Yeah, let me look at the Q&A here. For Adelante, how do you find your specific target customers to market to? Anonymous attendee. So the way that we think about our customers is we sort of segment out by element of value proposition. So, we sell, for example, shoes to people who have wide feet, right? So that's kind of one bucket. We sell shoes to people who decide to use the aesthetic customizer on the website. That's another bucket of customers. And then we sell shoes to people who are, purchasing neither one of sort of problem solution elements of the value proposition. That's another bucket. Our non-standard size customers, they tend to err on the older side. They actually skew on the side, which is different from our general sort of male-female split across all of our customers. They actually really care about the impact. They have a lot of money to spend. These folks actually prefer to shop in stores, though they do purchase from us, quite frequently off of e-commerce. Essentially, with that group specifically, we'll create different audiences off of different digital ad networks, and this kind of holds true for all of the different groups. We'll create different audiences, and we'll target specific things like plus size audiences. If we think that people with wide feet might resonate with that, things of that nature. So that's a little bit both about our customers and how we go about kind of going and finding them. And then once we have those customers, we do market research, we do surveys, focus groups, we learn more about them, why they're purchasing, et cetera, et cetera.
Peter, I think we have several more questions, so let's try to answer them a little faster so everyone can get their question in.
Yeah, the customer one is a big one.
Okay, sure.
Can you tell us about your production line in Guatemala? That's another big one. Yeah, so quickly, so we have a vertically integrated production facility down in Guatemala. 3 steps in the production process. So a pair of shoes comes in, it gets cut, it gets sewn, and then it gets lasted. We've counted over 1,000 craftsmen in this town that already know how to hand make shoes. At a $100 million a year company, we're employing about 700 people down here. I'll just pause there. I could go on, quite extensively about that in the diligence session. Let's see.
Yeah, we do have a diligence session coming up next week.
Yep. This is a good one. There's a couple of longer ones here, but a quick one. Primary competitors, are any growing faster? Like 3 tiers of competitors. One would be like traditional brands like your Fry, Cole Haan, Allen Edmonds. Those folks are hired to provide the value that we provide, although customers who purchase from them also purchase from us. The second tier is direct-to-consumer brands. So this is, companies like Thursday Food or MGemi that are built entirely around the value proposition of a higher quality pair of boots at a better price because we're cutting out the middleman. Again, you pull back the curtain, they can't provide the value that we can provide to customers because they produce the old way. And then the last tier is companies that are wired like us, and there's only a couple. There's one that's been around for a little while, I think 7 or 8 years, over in the UK called Undandy, that focus specifically on men, specifically on like the aesthetic customization element. I'm not sure exactly how big they are, but they seem to be doing well. And then there's a smaller, I think like our size brand out of New York called Margot, that's focused on women and focused more on like a made to measure fit type element of the value proposition. Let's see, political and economic situation in Guatemala, how does it impact your business? From my understanding, there are a lot of Guatemalans trying to get to the US through Mexico due to violence in Guatemala. So, Guatemala is definitely a developing country. There's a few things really working in our favor. One, we are located about 10 minutes outside of the biggest tourist attraction in the whole country, a town called Antigua. It's actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site. They have their own police force. We kind of fall in that bubble. In addition to that, a handful of, literally the most powerful and well-connected families in the country are directly invested into our company. And, we're able to sort of lean on those guys for anything that we need. We've never even had to pay a bribe, right? In 3 years of operating down here, we've never even had to pay anybody off. So there's really been no issue on that front. Let's see. How does the right size when ordering shoes? Great question, right? So what we are not is custom size. We are not custom size. We're simply providing the customer with a lot more standard size options than anybody else. So right now what you would do is you'd go to the website and you would take a simple sizing quiz that would slot you into the appropriate length and width grade? It's a great question because it's something we're thinking a lot about, is the best way to educate the customer as to what standard length and width size they actually are. Right now, we're working with the sizing quiz, but we're actually switching over to a virtual sizing app in the next couple of months, where you take a picture of your foot. It's called Find Me a Shoe, or Find My Shoe Size is the name of the app. You take a picture of your foot, and it slots you into the appropriate size range based on, based on that picture. Let's see.
Yeah, let's try to do one more question.
Yeah, you mentioned you have room for 200K. What's the minimum ticket that you would consider? What's the plan for the 1.2 million? So minimum ticket, the documents say 25, 10 realistically, that 10 realistically would be the minimum investment. And what's the plan for the 1.2? So we've increased our fixed costs by about $20,000 by making these hires. Email marketer, SEO, landing page person, and then the associate director of e-commerce, Nick. Now, 2 of those hires are down in Guatemala, so they're really quite cheap. But we're projecting to burn about $600,000 before becoming profitable this fall. So that's sort of it's, we're investing in the e-commerce team, and we need some working capital to get to break even. And then the objective is to go raise Series A once we hit that 3 million mark in trailing 12 months revenue. That's it. All right. Thank you.
Fantastic. Very good. Thank you very much, Peter. I'm sure we're going to have plenty of interest for a diligence session next week. And by the way, everybody, if you look at the company descriptions that are in the chat, if you open up those files, the time and date of the diligence session is there. Like I said, we're going to try to get all that information out to everybody via email, but it is there if you want to jot that information down. Okay, thank you, Peter. We're going to move on to our next company, which is Jingan Brothers. Rahim Diallo is going to be presenting. This company develops and sells traditional African food and beverage products. Their product roadmap includes packaged coffees and teas, cocoa products, ready-to-eat snacks, and super grains, as well as the cafe program. Okay, Rahim, it's all yours.
Hi, thank you for having us. I'm Mohammed, the older brother, and Rahim, the younger one. I hope everyone can see the deck fine. So we came here as teenagers, both of us. I was 13 and my brother was 14 when he joined me later. And we lived all across the East Coast and traveled all across the country. And what we found in the following decades are these amazing supermarkets all across the US with food from all walks of life and every corner of the globe. Yet you couldn't find any African foods or beverages. And we thought, wow, this is such a huge opportunity and no one has taken advantage of it. And perhaps, hopefully someone will soon. Few decades later, no one had done so. And one thing we observed around that time was that when you look at the food culture in the US, most of us, if you had to go to dinner, would go to get Chinese or some sushi or some Thai food or some Italian and the like. So it's really more of a representation of the people living within the country. And it was just, we thought it was a shame that Africa was not represented. So so we decided to take on that task and solve that issue. Now that we decided to do that, we have to figure out, what's the potential of this business and is there a market for it? We quickly realized that the answer to that is yes. The problem was that there's 5 million African-born residents, as you can see in the US, and 8 million in Europe, who don't really have many options when it comes to their food. There are multiple generations of Africans, some of which came here in the 60s, 70s. They have kids now, grandkids. And there are others who connect themselves back to the African continent. And also currently the diversity within the United States allows for people to want to try much newer things. And within the African continent itself.
And beyond just the opportunity that it presents to bring African products to market here in the Western world, in the U.S. and in Europe, within Africa proper, it's a really fragmented market. So you'll have an easier time finding cases of Coca-Cola, for example, than finding a local traditional drink, despite the fact that the locals consume that more than anything else. It's heavily fragmented, mostly small mom and pop shops that sell on roadside stands. And we feel that there's an opportunity for a brand to own that space, and we want to be that brand. So to solve this, we decided to launch Jam. Our whole mission is to develop and bring to market food and beverage products based on traditional African recipes. We could not launch with everything right out of the gate, so we started with a single beverage, which is the top left one on the picture there. It's a ginger-based product that's widely popular all across West Africa. We consumed by literally hundreds of millions of people, and yet there isn't a brand that owns that space. And we went to market with that. Ever since we rolled out a second SKU, the one in the top right, which is a hibiscus-based beverage. It's hibiscus leaves that's brewed and spiced with a blend of spices, nutmeg, cinnamon, cardamom. And then the two bottom ones are two that we bring into market. The coffee we're already selling at our coffee shop, and the Kenkeliba, same thing. Our roadmap really is to not only extend the beverage line, but is to eventually bring packaged, single origin packaged coffees and teas, cocoa products. One fact that we like pointing out to folks that surprises them is roughly 80% of all the chocolate consumed around the world is made from cocoa products from 2 countries in Africa. So we'll be making snacks and highly nutritious grains as we develop the brand. And as naturally, we cannot bring everything that is great in every African product to market, but our goal is to take the best of the continent that is also healthy and have a functional component to them. So as we develop our products over the coming years, we intend on making sure that they're healthy and have a functional component to them.
So from day one, we wanted to meet our customers wherever they are. So we decided on an omni-channel approach. Our business model is to sell through retail, through specialty food channels, online direct to consumer, and through an experiential space to educate and lower the cost of acquisition of our customers through the Ginger cafes. Since launch, we've sold in 48 states. Through e-com, and we've secured a distributor with over 4,000 accounts throughout the Northeast. And we've also secured, within 6 months of launching, we secured Whole Foods, and we're in other supermarkets across the Northeast, like Mom's Organic.
We started this business with very little. I had just come back from grad school, crashing on my brother's couch when we decided to do this. We literally started with less than $1,000, and we bootstrapped the whole way through. From 2015, we kept our day jobs, and I decided not to take a professional job, as my mom would say, and I took a job managing a bar just so we can work on this. Ever since, we've grossed over $600,000. We did on $370K in the last 18 months, and we raised about $325K altogether. And this came in small tranches. The most money we ever got in one go was $50,000. In 2020, had it not been for COVID, we would have ended the year with at least 700K, and by now we would have been on a run rate of about 1.5 million. But unfortunately, due to COVID, we ended the year at around $224,000. The competition. So the way we have the competition laid out here is it's just where we are today and also where we're looking to go. In the US proper, we consider everything food and beverage to be part of our competition. And then if you think about it on a top level, and as you go down, we think the more specific functional brands like Health Aid Kombucha and healthier food offerings to be main competitors. And eventually, when we enter the African market, we think some of the bigger players are the ones we'll have to deal with, the Coca-Colas, the Pepsis of the world. But none of these people are actually commercializing the local traditional stuff. So although we will be competing for stomach share, we, we'll, in some sense, will be blazing our own trail. The market the opportunity is great on the U.S. side, given the different verticals we'll be operating in, on the functional beverage, coffee shops, and the healthy snacks. It's, as you can see, it's a tremendous, it's a massive market, and given that pretty much most Americans, about 82% of Americans, consume some form of ethnic food, which in and of itself has a specific niche, is a $35.6 billion market and growing faster than pretty much every other category in the food and beverage space. Looking at just specifically the African diaspora in the US, the annual consumption of beverages alone is about 1.6 billion. And we feel that just even if that's the only market we capture, we can build a massive business. And naturally, we believe that everyone will love the products we're bringing to market.
Why now? Timing is everything. We feel that if you look throughout American culture at the moment, whether it's the success of Black Panther, the movie, or you listen to music today, or high-end designers being inspired by patterns from Africa, it's everywhere. The only place that's just in its very beginning is the food and beverage sector, and we plan to be that product, that company, to take that space over. So this is our current team. My experience is 10 years in sales, 4 years in working for a Fortune 100 company as a financial advisor, and I spent 3 years prior to starting to run Jinjam full time with a high growth insurtech company where I was working in the operations team and intersection of pretty much everyone. I was the 38th or so employee, and I was with them till they grew to about 300 employees, and that gave me the opportunity to learn so much about fast-paced, fast-growth companies.
My academic background is in engineering. I did my bachelor's in biomaterials engineering, and I did my master's in electrochemical devices and specifically fuel cells and lithium-ion batteries. But I spent the bulk of my working career in the food industry, which is relevant to the fact that we're looking to build out both CPG products as well as operate brick and mortar locations. And Ruan Ellis, our brand manager, is someone that I worked with when he was a creative director at a place I used to manage, at a big event venue that I used to manage. He had a wonderful background in fashion and worked in some of the biggest brands doing digital production as well as consumer experiences, experiential spaces. So we're looking to raise $2 million in this seed round, and we are at a $6 million pre-money valuation. We have about $400K committed from 3 folks. 2 of them are a team that built and sold a voice AI company to McDonald's, and they're based out of Silicon Valley. And the third one is a gentleman that founded Red Rabbit, which is a prepared meals company, healthy prepared meals company that makes culturally appropriate foods for the school systems in the greater New York City area. The way we're looking to deploy this capital is to spend about $1.25 million in marketing, some of it in digital. About half the round, really, we're looking to build additional brick and mortar locations because they've just proven to be amazing R&D platform, a user research platform, and also a way for us to give people an immersive experience of our brand, from the decor to the music to the food we'll serve. We'll spend about $250K to launch about 1,000 points of sale in retail. We'll spend about $360K in payroll, and the remaining balance is in a little bit of reserves, and also to bring to market 2 other beverages that we're already selling at our coffee shop and roll out additional products.
The image you're seeing here is our current beautiful cafe, which we're sitting in here. And listen, you will get quite a few products launching. You'll get quite a few products pitched at you following the current health trends. But rarely will you find a company like ours that's steeped in over 1,000 years of history and is well poised to create a brand new category on its own. Essentially, the opportunity is huge, and we'd be honored if you would join us. Thank you.
Very good. Fantastic. Questions?
All right, let me see.
Okay, we definitely have some questions. You want to start from the top?
Yeah.
How do you think about Amazon competition? I'm not really sure I understand that question, so I'll jump to the next one until I get some clarification. Just speak about the customer reception. I use your trajectory with Whole Foods as an example. Speak about the cafe, the marketing and business plan. Yeah, the cafe plays a huge role. So what we're looking to do with the cafes is not to build thousands of these all over the country like Starbucks, right? We're looking to have them be these experiential spaces built in major metropolitan areas. Think of it more like an Apple store of sorts. So people can come in, listen to music based on like African music, enjoy the decor, try beverages that we package and sell in distribution. So it's a way for them to taste the products in a way that that allows them to not take the risk of trying it at a store if they don't even know what it is. And we also found that as a marketing spend, it has a much better return on investment than spending all that money doing product demos in stores, for example, like Whole Foods, and it still drives sales in those stores.
For the second question, what are our price points and how do they compare with other bottled coffee, ethnic packaged food options? So our prices, we're not really, we're going for quality, and we want to be the highest quality African product to market. So price is not is quite important, but it's in this early stage we're focused on quality. Most of our customers, we've done some surveys, and they don't really care how much it costs. They care about the story. They care about how good the products are, essentially. So we are on the slightly higher end. For instance, our organic ginger drink, ginger here goes for $4.99 at Whole Foods. The bag coffee will be going around $14.99 to $15.99, depending on the type, per 12 to 14 ounce bag of coffee.
Channels. So we got into Whole Foods back in 2016. We launched within 7 months of launching. They brought us into a trial store. We did well there. They gave us 5 stores. Then they opened up the rest of New York City for us. And right now we have permission to go into the whole Northeast. And they also want us to bring in a second SKU, which is this hibiscus-based drink I mentioned to you earlier. Sales go up. But if our sales go up substantially, scaling. So we have suppliers lined up, we have co-packers lined up, you have a distributor. We spent the last 5 years making all the small mistakes you can make in retail and without killing ourselves. And so we really are raising this round because we're ready to scale. Our goal with this $2 million is within 12 to 18 months to be on a run rate of about $10 million. Go back out there, raise a Series A, and blow it up nationwide. So yeah, production, distribution, supply, we have it all secured and ready to go.
The minimum amount we will accept is $25K. And we've had, so we currently have one of the best organic food distributor in our category in the Northeast, and they have relationships with much bigger distributors, so we can use them. But we also have spoken to a few people in other larger chains. However, our strategy currently is not to go everywhere, is to build out a couple of additional experiential shops, make sure we educate the community, market heavily in our local area, get into 1,000 to 2,000 locations in the next 18 months, 18 months, 24 months. And then beyond that, we will look to grow larger. But I feel like it's very important right now to have a very focused approach retail-wise. However, through e-com, we will be targeting the whole country.
Yeah, we want to be very aggressive on a national scale with e-com because it's efficient, margins are great, and we can stay focused and grow it with a small team. Conversation with large retailers. So we have.
Okay. Are you planning to sell your products on Amazon?
Yeah, we're actually on Amazon right now. Unfortunately, and we're doing decent on there until recently. They're delisted us because of a pricing issue that we don't seem to be able to get anyone to respond to us. But yes, we are planning on going back and fixing all that. We're dealing with that right now, and doing a lot more business through Amazon.
We've also just been approved on Walmart.com, so we will be onboarding there and working with the marketing team to make sure we get the proper visibility on that end.
How much you expect to spend building on First Cafe? So one thing about us is we're amazingly capital efficient. So let me just actually give you a live view of the cafe because we're sitting in it right now. The cafe was always part of the plan, and initially we thought, okay, we'll grow the retail side a little bit, or e-com a little bit, until we get to a point where we raise a seed round, or like a more actually later, like a Series A round, and then roll out the cafes. But because we had a really rough time raising capital in the first 5 years, we did an equity crowdfunding campaign in 2018. By the end of that, we ran it for a year. We had raised 182K. After closing it, we realized if we just kept spending that money in retail, it's just not the most efficient way to do it. So we spent about $70,000 building this cafe. We did all the build out ourselves. And we anticipate spending around $250K to open additional cafes. So that $1 million will allow us to open 4 more in New York City that will do around $1.2 to $1.5 million a year.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. If you're interested, go to the diligence session next week, please. Mohammed, Rahim, thank you again. And now we're going to go on to our final company, which is SQUE, presented by Stephanie Scholl. SQUE is a perimenopause health and wellness innovation company that makes things that should have always existed. And on
Thank
that,
you, Ed.
Stephanie, I'll give it to you.
Thanks, Ed. Thank you, Cindy and the team. Yes, it feels good to be kind of back in this quasi-academic environment. Boy, do I miss academia. I left being a philosophy professor to start this company. So it's been a great journey. And what caused me to leave being a philosophy professor are these statistics here. When I, late in life, in my 40s, discovered that it's not just hair and skin down there, folks. The vagina is made of muscle, and it has to be very strong to do many important tasks. I was horrified when I found out that women weren't discussing it, but these are the numbers that they're suffering. 66% have some form of bladder leakage. Nearly half have some form of sexual dysfunction. Almost all of us have one of our pelvic organs, oftentimes the uterus or the bladder, that starts to descend, and you hear people getting, hysterectomies and bladder lifts. And 31% of us women walking around, according to a Department of Defense study of female soldiers, said that, their leakage, their bladder leakage, their incontinence interferes with their work, and as well, we know, with their play and with their, their private life. So it's really quite a big deal. And, just in case it seems like dead statistics on a page, I wanted to share with you that there's this women's journal that you see on the supermarket stands everywhere. We have an article in here, and there's a huge ad on the back for bladder leakage panties. And there's 2 more full page ads for bladder leakage products. So it is quite real that women are negotiating this and trying to find a way to live fully while scrambling around these problems. And so that was pretty shocking to me. And oops, sorry. Boop, there we go. And the market is quite huge, and it really intersects several markets, because you have the feminine hygiene market, and this is definitely a feminine hygiene product. You have sexual wellness, because as you saw, nearly 50% of women have sexual dysfunction. So you have the sexual wellness market, then you have the menopause market, and then we have how much we know women spend on just incontinence. So because the pelvic floor problems cause sexual dysfunction as well as bladder leakage, it starts to intersect many markets. And what do we know is this thing can be fixed quite easily with Kegel exercise. So when I found out about it, I'm like, great, why are so many women walking around with these problems if we know that Kegels fixes it? It both prevents it and treats it. Well, what the medical studies show is women cannot do the proper form, or they don't do it often enough. And we know that vaginal weights from the medical literature, like the Mayo Clinic recommends them, but there were no good ones. There were no FDA registered, safe ones. You had to go to a sex toy store to get them, and they were flawed. And so where I got involved, where I said, okay, I've been a feminist for a long time, teaching it, time to step down out of the ivory tower, get out of the armchair, and just really go out there and make a difference in women's lives. And I figured if they're holding back from doing everything they love, and we know we can fix it with something like vaginal weights properly designed, let's do it. And so I decided to get involved in the game, and I have patent pending this novel design. It's the only vaginal weight where the weight is outside the body, and that solves for several problems. And it is FDA registered, and it is made of medical grade silicone. And so it solves quite a few of the obstacles that were getting in the way of women using something to help them Kegel better. And I'm really proud of the fact that, because the women you know are super busy juggling work and family and everything else, we reduced the amount that doctors tell them to Kegel from 3 times a day, every day, which if you add it up, it gets close to 100 minutes a week. We've reduced it down to 5 minutes 3 times a week. And she gets it right. So there's a lot of weight involved, which really challenges her. So it reduces the time exercising, and the design of it makes her exercise perfectly. And we didn't involve any electronics or any apps because we wanted to make sure that this could travel around the world and help women everywhere without obstacles of cell phone syncing and language barriers and the other things that get involved with technology like batteries and all of that. So it was very intentionally made this way, but we also have plans about how to grow the brand and grow the product line. But this is exactly where we wanted to start. And we did, and this is the hero product. And so the yellow part that you see there is the insert, and she inserts it like a tampon, standing, like in the private place of a bathroom or a shower. The weights are outside the body. This is the patent pending part that's so novel. And those little motions really help get at all the little muscles. And she works out very quickly, just 5 minutes, and then she's done. And our goal is to see one of these beside every woman's toothbrush in the world, because it's an essential part of just self-care. And we've been selling for about 2 years. We're about to hit our 2-year anniversary, and we're ecstatic that we got accepted to sell at Costco.com. They discovered our product and asked to sell it. And it's the first time ever they're selling anything remotely like this. And they're selling it alongside those bladder leakage pads and diapers that I showed you the ads of. And it's doing extremely well there on Costco. Costco Australia reached out to us, so we're going to be selling there. And another big box retailer just accepted to sell us, and so we're arranging that. And that's huge for us because pelvic floor problems have been, I love what Peter Sacco just said, structural exclusion. Women have been structurally excluded from getting really good help in the marketplace because of taboo and because of other things. And the existing competitors' devices exist in the sex toy realm, and or there's surgeries in the medical realm. And we thought at Kegel Bell that really this is just basic self-care and beauty. So we went the angle of beauty, and we went and took all our little pennies and we went to a beauty trade show, and beauty got it. They understood, and we won awards. Influencers found us there, Costco found us there, the other big box retailer found us there. So that was the right move to say, this has never been sold in beauty, but we think it fits and it makes sense for the customer to buy it there. And here's what we've been up to. So we've been selling for about 2 years now, and we had a good year in spite of COVID, probably because a lot of people were working out at home and turning to things like that. So we were strong there. And what we're learning is, and why I was waiting to fundraise, is we've been studying like what works, which types of influencers, which types of promotions, which types of ads targeted to whom. And now we know like which levers to press. And so a big chunk of the money is to go to, all the tests that we do, we know what's going to pay out now. We know to put our money down on that. So we're increasing our return on ad spend, and we're reducing our customer acquisition cost. Our refund rate is very low. It's less than 1% online, 3% or a little bit under 3% with the Costco purchases. But we're blind to that. So I don't really get to communicate with the customer on Costco. And, here's the price of our kit. And it is more expensive than a sex toy to make because it's FDA registered. And that involves lots of quality assurance and lots of material choices that those sex toy companies were not going to make. And that's why we had to get involved. So we plan on being like crawl, walk, run. So we started out e-commerce, test it, get to know the customer. And then big box retailer found us a little faster than we thought they were going to, but that was always part of the roadmap. We were going to launch with some hotel spas, but then COVID hit. So that's one thing that COVID did damage us on. And eventually we want to end up in major medical, both United States and abroad, especially in those single payer systems, because countries like Australia have done studies on the cost of pelvic floor weakness in women. And as women live longer, we're living with these problems for decades, and it gets very expensive for the single payer insurance systems. And indeed, it's very expensive for customers in the United States. And so ours is a lower cost solution than what they're being offered otherwise. So we're looking forward to that. And likewise, we are staging our marketing efforts. And right now, as we speak, we have some of our top celebrities who have asked and wanted to try Kegel Bell. And we're looking for finding the right celebrity to really amplify our messaging. And so we're just shopping around right now and getting to know people. But it's pretty exciting that it's a who's who list that I can't reveal of people that use Kegel Bell. And we do have on the roadmap clinical studies. We have been able to get this far based on all of the research into Kegel exercise, all of the research into vaginal weights. And we work with our FDA consultant closely. But we definitely have seen and heard from our customers about some novel benefits. And we are really excited to do some studies to pursue those because it will really set us apart and differentiate us in the marketplace. So that's going to be strategic, and we'll do some de novo things with that when the time comes. But right now we're quite happy with where we're at. Kind of move this little bar around with the images. So here's our kind of where we've been and where we're going. We are in the middle of a raise. And like I said, I waited on that raise that we knew what we needed to spend it on and what worked. We're launching products. So yes, Kegel Bell's our hero product. And we're now with an insert serum and a cleaner. I'm developing some 5-minute treatments that she can use while using her Kegel Bell. And then we have some electronic versions that we can upsell. And we're even developing 2 products for men to deal with their pelvic floor problems, because it's a very big issue for men too, but I wanted to tackle the problems for women first. And then here is our projections based on a 1.5 million investment. And you can see in the first year, if you look at our expenses, that's how we plan on spending the money, the funds, distributed through staff and marketing, R&D, and what have you. And I had the detailed projections month by month that I worked with a financial analyst on for a long time. And we're used the numbers that we learned from 2 years of selling Kegel Bell. It does not include the new product lines, but it does include the research and development so that we can launch those new product lines. And here we go with team and advisors. My co-founder is a doctor of engineering in Germany. And he was really helpful in introducing us to the manufacturer that's been a strategic partner for us. And he helps with our patent portfolio. And he owns several patents. We have issued several patents that the company now owns for our electronic versions. So we intend to grow the product line, but we're just trying to do it strategically. And then we have tons, and this is not a comprehensive list. So, how did we get this
just
far?
keep an eye on the clock, would you please?
Oh, yes. I thought I started my timer. Okay, very good. And so we have gotten this far with just tons of help and volunteers from people, because so far we've spent about $360,000. But between patents made, molds made, manufacturing, website development, everything, we had to get a lot of help along the way. And here's part of our vagina philanthropists, as we call them, of people that help out. So that's my presentation. I would love to continue the conversation in the Q&A section. So let me cruise on over to the Q&A. And that's not it. That is not the Q&A that I wanted to go to. I'm back. I will stop this and go to the Q&A here. Okay, so who are your competitors in this space? Okay, so our biggest competitors, our most interesting ones, is a company called Elvie. They're out of Great Britain. That's Jawbone CEO started that. They fundraised about 55 million. And it's a Bluetooth device where you squeeze and it's gamified with your cell phone. It's a high quality product, but it's a different mode and it involves different problems. So we're sold right now in Japan. And so Elvie's trying to be in Japan, but they didn't translate all of their material on their app. So it's a little harder for them to be nimble internationally than we are. And then the other big competitor, I would say, is Joylux. And they involve, it's a vibrator that has some LED lights and some warmth. So that's geared more for the postmenopausal crowd, I would say. And Elvie's pitching more to like the yoga younger ladies who like gamified things. And we believe that we're cross-trained. So if anyone gets some benefit from either of those, but really wants to take it even farther, they would cross-train with a serious device like ours. And will our patents maintain a competitive advantage? Well, you know, there are schools of thought on the patent game, and I bet this crowd has some interesting debates about it, about can you really afford to defend them, and would that make sense? So we're getting them because we think they're important, and we also think when we exit, or anyone that buys us would strategically want those, and they probably have deeper pockets to be able to defend them. But it's more or less to dissuade competitors and to set us up for exit. Then I think we could practically defend them in court with the expenses that those entail. But that's just my take on patents. So then let's see, besides celebrity influencers, have you also looked at influencers in the women's health space? Are there medical organizations? Yes, yes, yes. Are you able to market your product in doctors' offices, places that, yes. So definitely, you know, right now we're sold on WebPT, which is the premier physical therapist site, and doctors reach out to us and we'll sell them in their hospitals or clinics and with their patients. So yes, they can. And then the question is, I wanted to have courting major medical a little bit farther down the roadmap because of some of the expenses in talking with doctors and some of the expenses in getting on those lists. But it's always been, you know, part of the plan, and we are poised. That's why FDA registration was so important. We're in a position to be able to do that, and our competitors aren't. Let's see. So where we are in the patent process, it is pending. One of them is pending. Some others are issued, and we're going to, with these funds, file even more patents on various design and various other things about the product. So there's various ways we can attack it and continue to layer on patents. And so our engineer is eager to get started on that. Since he already has 40 patents issued, he's fairly comfortable with jumping into that process for us. So you mentioned Kegel Bell's going to another big box store. I didn't mention the name. When can I mention? You know, I mention it when it's live. That's how I feel about it. You know, I didn't even tell my grandmother about Costco because we didn't go live in time before she passed away. So I really wanted to share that and celebrate that with her, but I don't count my chickens until they hatch. And so I'm going to kind of keep that to myself until it's up and running for all to see. So those are the questions that I saw. Are there others that I might have overlooked? I think those were it. Ed?
Great. Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
Cheers.
if you're interested in SQUE, everybody, please go to the diligence session next week. That does it. 4 great companies, 4 great stories, hopefully 4 great investments. Who knows? We encourage you to go to the diligence sessions. If we do everything correctly, everyone will get an email with these links. If you didn't copy it down, or if you didn't submit if you submit the form, that's great. If you don't, like I said, we hope to email this information to you. All of these sessions will be next week, and you know, and then you all will go from there. One other thing I'd like to mention to you, and that is, if you want to get a hold of any of us, that is the Booth Angel Committee, shall we say, we do have an email address.
You're on mute, Ed. You accidentally hit the mute button.
Oh, sorry. Okay. I don't know when I went on mute, but hopefully not too long ago. In any event, we can be reached directly. It's at boothangels.ny@gmail.com. I'm trying to put this into the chat, and I will do that. And that's really about it. We hope you all enjoyed yourself. We hope that you found some stimulating things here. If you have any other questions, you know, just shoot into Q&A right now. We'll stay on for another couple of minutes. But other than that, thank you again. And hopefully next time we meet, it's not going to be virtually, it's going to be in person. But that remains to be seen. Have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone.